Lily Monroe woke with her face pressed into dry soil, the grit scraping her cheek as she took her first conscious breath. The sun had climbed high enough to burn her skin like a branding iron on a runaway horse. Her wrists were tied so tight behind her back that her fingers had long gone numb. Whoever had left her had dragged her like a sack of grain and tied her to the old split-rail fence at the edge of Dodge City. Her face throbbed with bruised heat. Her cheek was swollen from a slap she never saw coming, and her lower lip had split during the struggle. A thin line of dried blood clung to her chin. The dirt beneath her feet was scuffed where she tried to push herself upright, but her legs had given out hours ago. Every breath scraped her ribs like rough sandpaper. Her white blouse, once her one good shirt, hung torn at the shoulder. Her shorts were smeared with dust and bruises. Flies landed on her arms and neck freely, she couldn't raise her hands to chase them off. Behind her, the night still echoed in her memory, shouting, curses, the sharp snap of judgment from bitter tongues. The women had accused her first, yelling insults she'd never deserved. The men followed, puffed up by anger and stiff with false righteousness. They said she'd flirted with a married man. They said she smiled too long at the wrong person. They said she brought shame to the town simply by existing. But the truth didn't matter here. Dodge City had never cared for truth. Only punishment. Only humiliation. They'd dragged her into the dust at sundown, bound her to the fence like an outlaw to be mocked at dawn. They'd left her for the night, for the heat, for shame to finish what their anger had started. She'd prayed for mercy, whispered to the dark for help. But morning had risen with nothing but heat and silence. Her father had died years ago, her mother remarried, and there was no space left for a daughter who invited trouble just by breathing. Lily had no one, not in the city, not in the plains, not even in the world. When she finally lifted her head, the road wavered in the shimmering heat. Nothing moved. No horses. No riders. No salvation. Her voice cracked when she whispered for help, the wind carried it away like dust. Her eyelids drooped. Heat exhaustion tugged at her bones with quiet persistence. She knew what the sun could do to a person. And she was fading. Then, something shifted. A shadow at the edge of the field. A horse snorted. A figure moved steady across the shimmering heat. Lily blinked hard. She wasn't sure she could trust her own vision, heat played cruel tricks. But the shadow grew clearer, a man on horseback, tall in the saddle, his hat wide and dusty, his posture calm and practiced. A rider who knew the land as well as he knew his own heartbeat. He slowed as he approached. His horse stepped sure and careful. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, then opened them again. He was still there. The rider swung down from the saddle, boots hitting the ground with a dull, heavy thud. He walked toward her, not hurriedly, not fearfully, just steady. Up close, Lily saw his lined face, carved by storms and loss and too many long days. A man around 50, maybe a little older. His eyes took her in quietly. They didn't judge. They didn't turn away. They simply saw her. She didn't know his name yet. But the world would later know him as Caleb Hart. He crouched in front of her, studying the knots biting into her wrists. Then he lifted his gaze to hers, steady, patient, almost gentle. "Who did this to you?" His voice was low, carrying more concern than force. No one had asked her that. No one had cared. She tried to speak. Only a faint rasp escaped. Caleb nodded, understanding without needing the words. He reached for the rope with a small knife from his belt. Lily flinched, pure reflex. Caleb froze instantly. He didn't touch her again until she gave the smallest nod she could manage. Only then did he cut the ropes. Her arms fell forward and hot, painful blood surged back into her hands. She collapsed, but Caleb caught her, not tightly, not possessively, only enough to keep her from hitting the ground. With her breath rattling in her chest, she let him help her stand. Her legs trembled like a newborn foal's. Caleb led her gently to his horse. He lifted her into the saddle with surprising care for a man with such rough hands. She clung to the saddle horn, dizzy and weak. Caleb looked back at Dodge City, then up at her. There was something new in his eyes, a quiet anger, not at her, but at what had been done. His voice softened. "Do you want to leave this place with me today?" That single question felt like a doorway opening. She nodded. Caleb took the reins and walked beside the horse as they left the fence behind. It took nearly an hour to reach the Hart Ranch. The house sat tucked beside cottonwoods, with a modest barn and field stretching golden beneath the sun. Quiet. Peaceful. Caleb helped her down. She stumbled, leaning on him, not out of trust, but exhaustion. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar, dust, and old coffee. A photo of a woman sat on a small table. Caleb noticed Lily's eyes linger on it. "My wife," he said quietly. "She passed some years ago." Lily nodded, understanding the weight of absence. Caleb brought a bowl of cool water and a cloth, then stepped outside to give her privacy. When Lily washed the dirt and dried blood from her skin, she barely recognized the bruised girl staring back from the water's reflection. 19, but her eyes looked older. Later, she stepped onto the porch. Caleb sat on the steps, hands resting on his knees. He looked up, his voice calm. "You'll stay here until you're strong again. No one will harm you. Not on my land." For the first time in years, Lily felt her breath loosen. 5 days passed. Lily grew steadier each morning, sweeping floors, helping with meals, sitting outside in the evenings. Caleb worked nearby, always with a quiet steadiness she had never known from any man. But trouble in the West never stays quiet for long. Just after noon, Caleb spotted dust rising on the horizon. 5 riders approached. He stepped toward the gate with a calm that came from years of surviving danger. Lily watched from the window. Her heart shrank. 2 of the riders she recognized immediately, the preacher who'd shouted the loudest during her humiliation, and the saloon owner who had spread the lies. The men rode up, horses snorting. The preacher spoke first. "We came for the girl." Caleb didn't move. His hand rested casually on his revolver. "She's not yours," he said. "She's under my protection." "She shamed our town," the preacher snapped. "She comes with us." Caleb stepped closer, voice cold steel. "No. She doesn't." Another man spat. "What's a man your age want with a girl like that?" Something in Caleb settled, not anger, but resolve. "I'll say it once," he said. "Turn around and ride home. No second warning." The men shifted uneasily. Caleb was older, slower, but the fire in his eyes was something they weren't ready to gamble against. The riders backed away, retreating down the road. Lily collapsed into a chair inside, breath shaking. For the first time in her life, someone had stood for her. But fear crept in. If the men returned, they might not come with 5, they might come with 20. The ranch stayed quiet all afternoon. Lily sat on the porch steps, hands clenched, watching Caleb watch the road. When the sun dipped low, Caleb finally turned to her. "You're safe here," he said softly. "But you must choose what kind of life you want now." She looked out at the land, the whispering grass, the calm horses, the sky stretching forever. A place where she wasn't a burden. A place she mattered. "I want a life where I'm not hated for breathing," she said. "I want to stay somewhere I count for something." Caleb nodded. "You matter here. More than you know." Weeks passed. Lily grew stronger. She helped feed calves, mend fences, carry buckets from the well. She laughed, once by accident, then again on purpose. Caleb often glanced over with a faint smile, as if the sound healed a corner of him too. Rumors swirled in Dodge City, but none of them reached the quiet strength of the ranch. Some places are built strong enough to keep darkness out. Some hearts, too. One evening, under a gold sky, Lily thought back to the fence, to the heat, to the humiliation she'd survived. And she thought of the man who knelt beside her, offering a second chance she hadn't believed she deserved. "Do you think the world gives people second chances?" she asked. Caleb looked at her, eyes steady as the plains. "Only if they're brave enough to walk toward them." She breathed deeply, differently than she ever had before. Sometimes the world tries to break a person. Sometimes that person rises taller than the world ever expected. And sometimes, a weary rancher sees worth in someone long before she sees it in herself.